Do low-carb diets actually help you lose fat, or is it just another scam? Let's talk about what's really happening in your body. By the end of this video, you'll know if low-carb dieting lives up to the hype or if there's a better way to go about losing weight. And so many people feel like they need to eliminate all of their carbs and go to extremes just to lose a couple of pounds. But based on my personal experiences losing over 50 pounds and helping clients do the same, I would argue that this mentality of going to extremes of cutting carbohydrates or following fad diets is exactly what's getting people stuck yo-yo dieting, losing the same 20 pounds over and over again. So today I'm going to talk about what carbohydrates are, what they do in your body, and their role in regulating your body weight. That way you can make an informed choice on if low-carb dieting is the right kind of diet for you. So let's clear up what carbohydrates are and where they come from. Carbohydrates are one of the three macronutrients that your body needs, those being protein, carbs, and fats. They're called macronutrients because these are the nutrients your body needs the most of. These are the things your body needs to do the vast majority of functions that help to keep you alive and feeling well. Carbohydrates are found in three main food groups. The first one being fruits. This includes all fruits, fresh, frozen, and canned. All fruits have carbohydrates. Category number two is going to be your grains and your starches. This is going to be where most people get their carbohydrates from. It's going to be from potatoes, bread, oats, pastas, and cereals. And the third category are your milk and alternatives. This would of course include milk, but also alternative dairy products, things like yogurt, skim milk, soy milk, coconut milk. These products will also have carbohydrates in them, as well as a little bit of protein and tons of micronutrients. Carbohydrates are very different than your other macronutrients because when you digest a carbohydrate, it gets turned into a very small sugar. This small sugar is called glucose. Glucose is your body's favorite energy source. It's the energy source that your body uses most efficiently. Your brain uses about 130 grams of glucose a day, and there's no other fuel source that your brain can use. Your muscles also love glucose and function much more effectively when they are given glucose to use. And so if you're somebody who lives an active lifestyle, or if you're an athlete, glucose is especially important to get from your diet in the form of carbohydrates. But the interesting thing about glucose is that it can also be stored in a different form called glycogen within your muscles and your liver. This is very similar to how your phone works. If you plug your phone in on low battery, you might continue to use it if you have other things to do, which will drain battery that's going directly into your phone, but the excess energy that's being put into your phone will be stored for later on. Your glucose works the same way when it's getting stored as glycogen. And just to be clear, this is a very good thing. You want your body to have stored energy for later. That way, if you need energy, your body has stuff to draw upon. So as a brief summary, before we go any further, carbohydrates are your body's favorite source of energy. You're going to get carbohydrates from your fruits, your grains and your starches, and your milk and alternatives. Carbohydrates that you don't immediately use in the form of glucose will then be stored as glycogen to be used as glucose later on. It's all just energy for your body. Now let's clear up the internet's biggest myth, that carbs make you fat. Here's where the myth comes from. As we talked about earlier, when you don't use carbohydrates you consume, it gets stored in the form of glycogen. But in order for glucose that you're getting from carbohydrates to be stored as glycogen, it needs to store 3 grams of water with it. So for every gram of carbohydrates your body stores, you're storing 4 grams total of body weight. This is not body fat, this is additional body weight. So something I know we've all experienced before is you eat a big meal, especially like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas dinner, and you step on the scale next day and it says that you've gained like 10 pounds and you're like, oh my God, I ate so much food that I gained 10 pounds in just one day. But what's really happening there is that you ate extra carbohydrates, and those extra carbohydrates your body didn't need. So it stored it in the form of glycogen in your muscle and in your liver. But because it had to store those carbs with water, it means that your body weight went up quite rapidly in a short period of time. For perspective, a pound of body fat has about 3,500 calories in it. So if you were to gain 10 pounds over a span of, let's say, 2 days, that would mean you would have to eat an extra 35,000 calories in order to gain 10 pounds of body weight in 2 days. The average person eats about 2,000 a day. So I think you can see how unrealistic that would be. But because of the association between the increased carbohydrate intake on a couple of days and an increase in body weight, a lot of people get scared and confused and they think that they're gaining body fat. But really what's happening is you're storing carbs and extra water. And over time, as your body uses the carbohydrates you've stored, your body weight then returns to normal. I think this is something you've probably experienced yourself. You probably just didn't know what was happening until now. So when you see people following low-carb diets or fad diets like keto or carnivore or intermittent fasting, typically they decrease their carbohydrate intake initially and they lose a whole bunch of weight. But that first 5 or 10 pounds that they lose isn't because they're losing body fat, it's because they're losing the carbs and the water that they were once storing. Because once you reduce your carb intake, your body's forced to pull from those glycogen stores, thus decreasing your body weight in the short term. So what can happen is somebody who's following a low carb diet will initially see a quick decrease in body weight, and then their weight will stagnate and they'll be like, well, the diet's not working anymore, when in reality, they didn't lose any body fat in the first place. The only thing they lost was carbohydrate stores and water. But that's not to say that you can't lose weight from reducing your carbohydrate intake. In order for weight loss to occur, you need to consume fewer calories than your body needs in a day. And a lot of people, especially in North America, typically overconsume calories. So by following a lower carbohydrate diet, which decreases their calorie intake, they may see weight loss in the long term, not because they've removed carbs, but because they've removed calories from their diet. This is to say that the initial weight loss you might see following a low carb diet usually isn't fat loss, but by sticking to a lower carb diet or a lower calorie diet in the long term, you can successfully see weight loss. But the problem with low carb dieting is that it's typically not sustainable. Most people aren't willing to eliminate carbohydrates for an extended period of time, which means they don't see weight loss long term. From my experiences working with a variety of different clients, typically everyone's favorite food is a carbohydrate food. And by telling yourself you can't have your favorite food, it makes it really hard to follow a diet long term when you're not able to incorporate things you legitimately enjoy, which ends up really making weight loss discouraging. Decreasing your carb intake decreases the amount of energy your body has available, which can lead to excess fatigue and irritability, which makes it harder to adhere to a diet long term. And in order to lose weight, you have to be able to stick to a diet long term. Some people do very well following a lower carb diet, and for those people, that's amazing. But for the vast majority of people, in my experiences, following a low carb diet is usually not the best way to go about it. For this reason, I encourage a different approach where instead of focusing on removing things from somebody's diet, I look at things we can add to it. Most people eat diets low in protein and low in fiber. Protein and fiber play an incredibly important role in regulating your appetite and regulating your calorie intake. And so when you follow a higher protein, higher fiber diet, you typically eat less carbohydrates without even noticing it because you get full sooner, and as a result, you eat a little bit less. The less food you eat is typically from the carbohydrate portion of your plate. I find this simple mindset shift of adding protein to your diet and adding fiber to your diet instead of eliminating carbohydrates makes dieting actually feel rewarding, and it makes it feel like you're fueling your body instead of taking away from your life, which is a much more sustainable approach. I will add too that protein also helps you to build muscle as long as you're being active, and by building muscle over time, it becomes easier to lose weight and easier to maintain weight loss. So that's another reason why I think focusing on protein and fiber is the better approach to weight loss. But again, some people love their low carb diets and it works really well for them and they get substantially healthier as a result. And for those people, that's amazing. I just don't think that's the approach that most people should take. So if you feel like you've been stuck cycling through low carb diets, watching your weight yo-yo up and down all the time and just don't see the results, I'm telling you, you're not the problem. The diet you're following just isn't the right one for you. The key takeaways I want you to have today is that carbohydrates are just an energy source for your body. And by overconsuming carbohydrates, just like overconsuming anything else, you can gain weight. And by reducing carbohydrates, thus reducing your calorie intake, you can lose weight. But you can also take an alternative approach to that, where instead of focusing on reducing carbohydrates, you focus on adding more filling and nourishing foods like protein and fiber. This can help you get to the same goal in a better way, in my opinion. Have you tried low carb dieting before, and were you successful in doing that? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And if this helped to clear up the low carb diet conversation at all, I would love for you to subscribe and follow along for the journey.